if I don't have a clear pathway for somebody to come in fresh and get the experience they need and teach them what they need to know so that they can do what we do, I've really limited who I can even help get into this industry, who I can hire.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and it's part 2 of my conversation with Cameron Davis, who is the owner of Imago Dei Bookkeeping and Consulting, and he is a Pure Bookkeeping licensee. Cameron will discuss how he's growing his team, streamlining systems, and building a scalable, purpose-driven firm with the help from Pure Bookkeeping and a clear vision for his future. That chat is coming right now. It's interesting. So now let's maybe talk a little bit about you building this wall, you're putting the bricks in the wall, building the house here, the foundation, if you will, while you've got the job. Tell us a little bit about what the business looks like today. You've got a team. You've mentioned payroll, so you've obviously got some people working for you. How did that transition look? What was your first hire, and how did it go?
Yeah, I mean, the first hire I made was actually while I was still working. I had built up from, January 2023 with one client to, I think maybe October or November with about 12-ish, something like that, 12, 15-ish. And, it got to a place where it was, I couldn't be as effective as I needed to be. And so I started reaching out to make a hire. And so what that looked like essentially was, hey, I'm going to communicate. I just need transactions done so that because I don't have the capacity to do all of this. I need them done right. I need them done, in the background. You don't ever have to talk to a customer. I'll talk to them. I'll do all that. I'll be the face. And it went well. It went well because it solved the problem that I had. And then, it got to a place where even with the help, even with, because I hired a lady who was working about 10 hours a week, which was great. It was super important and key for where we were at, but got to a place where it was still unsustainable with full-time job, growing this thing that has now gotten out of control, at least for the time period I was in, and didn't plan on building a business, had no idea that this was ever going to happen, but knew that, hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep growing. Maybe it'll be something one day. Maybe it won't. I can't just leave my job because I've already put my family through that enough. I've already, jumped ship and it didn't go well and, ended up working a second job and all the things. And so had to be really careful at what point we decided to make that shift. And so, it got to a place where I could not sustain the client load we had with about 15 or 20 by the time I left my job, with the full-time job and the responsibilities there. And so probably was dropping balls on both sides. And so it was kind of to the point where they kind of recognized the issues. I recognized the issues because I was not miserable, but it was very stressful. And in a meeting, it was, hey, these are things that need to be fixed. If they don't get fixed, essentially the communication was, hey, if we don't fix some of these things, this ain't going to work anymore. And I'm like, I totally get it because I'm feeling it, because this thing is just getting out of control. And so, did some, I guess, historic look at, okay, how much have we grown every month? What's the revenue look like month to month? And how long would it take if we kept growing to replace my income? And so it was 2 months. I had 2 months to fully replace my income if we grew at the same rate. And so we decided, hey, I want to dive into this. This is what it's looking like 2 months from now. And if it doesn't go well, I can get a job doing something else and still do this on the side and maybe cut back on client load, maybe, just kind of regroup, but we'll still be okay. And so jumped ship, and gosh, within a month and a half, we had replaced it. We had gotten to that goal. So it was a little scary, but it was also strategic, and it had to happen. It wasn't fair to anybody, especially my family, but also clients and the job. Still great company, but just wasn't going to work.
Interesting. And that experience of previous business and going through that really made you cautious, if you will, or I don't even think the word is cautious. Cautious would be just having a job and not doing a business, right? But you were being, it's like considerate. I don't know the word that I'm looking for here, but it was very pre-thought out. This is going to work, and we're going to make sure. Responsible. I think it's the word I was looking for, is very responsible way. Yeah. These all have to work. We're not going to jump off into this pond without, in head first. We're going to put the toe in and make sure this works. And that's great. Responsibility to your family. And then obviously as you're growing, that, the seams start to burst out a little bit, and you figured that out, and it became time. When you transitioned, was it just you then, or did you still have the 10-hour support? What did that look like as you grew the business? And then what would that next phase look like after you made the transition?
Yeah, unfortunately, when I left the job, we were still pretty unorganized, had no systems, had no, real like format for anything besides email and things like that. So did kind of part ways with who was helping me, and I think it was fine for them too, because I think we were very young and didn't know what we didn't know still. So through 2024, I was just me, and so my wife did some on the side and helped with some things, but it was kind of just me as we grew and got more cleanups and catch-ups and more clients on board and things like that. And so it wasn't till kind of towards the end of 2024 that I really needed to kind of start considering hiring again, or maybe mid to end. And so hired a couple of different folks that didn't quite work out. One lady at the end of the year just didn't have enough time that I needed, and so a lot of the changes that we were going through just would not. I needed a little bit more, and she got offered full time where she was at. So it was just kind of like it just worked. And then earlier in the year, I had hired a family friend. She did great, but I needed a little bit more like during the day, and so she had a full-time job and kind of was doing like I did, which was kind of at night, but I couldn't dedicate a lot to evenings, and so it was just kind of like we were missing each other a lot. I think it would have went really great if it was just a different period of time for both of us. But so I hired in January a very, very good fit for both of us. Adriana, she's incredible, and so she came from a public accounting like regional firm where it was 50 to 80 hours a week, and just CPA firm. She did the books. She did some involved in taxes and things like that. And so she had 20 years experience doing that, did not want to do that. And so it was a great fit because she had the experience, she had the time. I only needed about 20 hours a week or so, and so 25 or so. And so she's still 25 hours a week, something like that. And, part of that process of interviewing, I also met our second member of the team. Like he's kind of getting his own clients kind of under me, and so inside of our firm. And so there's a split, and I'm helping him, make sure he's doing it right, and trying to pass some things as I can that I'm getting and I just can't handle. And so I actually brought both of them on because I really wanted to bring him on, but the experience and the things that I needed at the time were more fit for what she was doing and what she was kind of experienced with. And so that was a really good experience there at the beginning of the year. And we bought an existing firm. And so we bought a firm that had about, exactly. Yeah. We were serving about 45 clients, and then bought 7 more and brought on a team member and was closing the books for the year and 1099s And then we did about 30 or 40 tax filings this year. And so up until the last month, I was at my absolute full capacity, could not breathe most days because it was a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot. Congratulations on all of it. That's some cool stuff, some big shifts, some hires, some learnings along the way there. Tell me a little bit about Pure Bookkeeping. Where did Pure Bookkeeping come into the story?
Yeah, so I'll just say we tried a few systems. I won't say what they are. They were free. They're like a lot of bookkeepers use them, which they're great. They worked while they worked. We tried a few systems that were kind of free, kind of basic, kind of like entry level systems that would get the job done for notes and would get the job done for tasks, but they weren't really great and they weren't super scalable. And so it caused a lot of frustration for myself. And as we got more clients, once we hit the 40s, once we hit 40 to 50 clients, and like now we're serving about 60. And so every month. And so once we hit about 40 to 50 clients, my visibility of what's going on within the firm almost vanished because there's so much going on. And really what I realized was far before that, it had started to vanish. And so, I needed as I grew, and I should have implemented these things way earlier, but I didn't have a good grasp on which accounts did I handle this week? Which did I not? Because all I could do is look at my QuickBooks and if there wasn't a task, I'm just shooting from the hip. And so until we joined Pure Bookkeeping, I did a lot of apologizing because our systems weren't working very well. The clarity that I had and our team had wasn't really great. And so we were really trying to, instead of taking a straight line, we were trying to go 10 miles to get 10 feet. And once now we've joined Pure and the support that we have there, I feel like we're in that straight line again, where we're going 10 feet and we're getting there in 10 feet and it's not taking us 2 miles.
Beautiful. One of the key things is systems and process, right? And if you don't have those things in place, it can unravel pretty quickly. And it's tough because it's like we see our clients do it, right? You see business owners, they try to do the books themselves because they can. And then all of a sudden they can't, and it's a big deal. There's consequences. Same thing building systems into any business. People don't start with the systems and process and the workflow and all of that stuff put together. It's almost like you get forced into doing it. If you want to go beyond, you got to do this. Otherwise you do what you did, which is a lot of apologizing and sleepless nights and waking up at 3 going, oh, geez, I forgot to do this. Mm-hmm. So now that you've implemented that, or where are you at in the stage? When did you start implementing the Pure Bookkeeping systems into your business? How long ago?
Yeah, so we joined about 2 months ago.
2 months ago. And
yeah, so we're still pretty fresh. So we've got the systems in terms of like recurring tasks on a weekly and monthly basis that tell us what to do, how to do it. But now we have a centralized location where our SOPs live for client specific SOPs that we try to put in place. Beforehand we had to go to 2 or 3 systems, but now they are visible inside of one place, and my team has access to it so that our Loom videos are there, and that's where our documents are that tell exactly the process for that client. Because the goal from the very beginning, or probably from about a year ago or a little bit less, is wanting to build a firm that doesn't need me all the time. Means that I can't just decide one day that it doesn't need me. I've got to do the work on the front end to build a business that doesn't need me. And it doesn't happen in one day. It happens over the course of, while you're building it, and if you don't make the right moves. And so I'm certainly not perfect, and I've had so much improvement to do, but, trying to think it from that perspective kind of allows me to know, what do I need to do? Okay, well, we need videos so that we can, my team can watch the videos and they don't have to call me next week. They can watch the video again if they need to for this process. And so Loom came on board. Okay, well, I got to write out the process that's not in Loom, but I've got to write out the process for this client so that my team understands who they are, understands, okay, they use this system, this system, this system. Here's what we do with them. And here's a Loom video for how that system integrate, whatever. And so we had to get documents. So SOPs started to appear. And so we're in process of trying to get those things onboarded for all of our clients. In addition to, our team has access to Pure. They set, their tasks up in the system so that they have all of the recurring stuff, all of the things that are one time, and, they have a centralized place that they get to go. And then now, our team is starting to get into do some of the trainings and some of the things so that they can be even more effective.
Very cool. That's exciting. You've got it. This is the beginnings of setting yourself free from the business. And that's, Michael, where it all started for Pure Bookkeeping was with Debbie Roberts back where you were basically exactly the same place, scratching your head going, there's no more capacity. I don't have time for my kids. I'm working 7 days a week and I'm doing evenings. How's this going to work? And it was Peter Cook that she met at a networking event. And he said, you got to get all that stuff out of your head and onto paper into followable instructions that are detailed enough that someone else can do it without you. And that's it. So he handed her the book, Michael Gerber's E-Myth Revisited, his first book on systems, building a system-driven business, this whole beautiful concept of, if you build all the systems, you run a system-driven business versus a people-driven business where everyone in the business has all the systems in their head and they're great at what they do and that works for a while, but if they leave, everything comes apart. It's a house of cards. And so you're doing that. You're doing the solve a problem with the system. It's like, a person asks a question, record a Loom, and every single business you deal with it's like a fingerprint. There's similarities. It's a thumb, right? We know that it's a thumb. Everybody's got a thumb, but the fingerprint's different. And so inside that business, that all those 45 clients you have, there's different mechanisms. People, they use different systems. They do different things. They expect different things. And so you've got to be able to capture that intellectual property. And the better you're at, the better you lock that intellectual property down, the more likely you're going to retain the client. That becomes valuable. And your staff have something to follow and do, and there's less questions on you, and they can actually do the work and do it well and without you. And that's the dream, is to, work less, make more, have more fun. That's what people get into business to do. So without systems and process, it doesn't happen, or it's very difficult to get there.
Yeah. And, I've seen a lot of, in the groups and in, just the industry where, there's such an expectation put on new staff, or when I hire somebody, they've got to have, A, B, and C, and, all these different things. And that's great. But me coming from outside of the industry completely, I don't have a degree in accounting. I don't have all of that stuff, but I came into the industry totally brand new and I learned it, and, we're doing fine. Well, if I don't want to have to hire every single person that has to fit such a specific mold, what must be true for me to bring somebody on that was like me, that was hungry, that really wanted to make a difference, that really wanted to do this thing, and how do I get them to where I am? And so it's completely possible. So many of us did it. So many of the people that say, their staff has to meet these specific requirements. So many of those people came in from a different, somewhere else, and so they were the new person. But if I don't have a clear pathway for somebody to come in fresh and get the experience they need and teach them what they need to know so that they can do what we do, I've really limited who I can even help get into this industry, who I can hire. And so right now, one of our team members that is in college getting a master's degree, she handles some things that are not bookkeeping related at all. And so I needed help with, hey, this client needs this report. I've got to get them that, and I'm doing a poor job because I'm so spread thin. With 60 clients, I just everywhere. So here's what I need. I need you to do this. I need you to do this. Great. I don't need you to do accounting. I don't need you to do bookkeeping at all. And what we're trying to do now is exposing her to bookkeeping, exposing her to accounting so that she can start to learn what this looks like. And it opens up the opportunity where the more seasoned team members can take on the more difficult accounts that have multiple systems and multiple needs, while she can take on the things that are a little bit more cookie cutter, kind of, it is what it is. Income and expenses, there aren't other systems and things. And so it allows me then to grow strategically again, where I don't only depend on this one person, and when this one person's capped out, I either have to do it or I can't take on the client. Now I can start to, differentiate what types of clients can I go get and who's going to take those clients, or as I'm handing things to the guys that are doing contract work, or just the guy who now does tax work, what does this whole thing look like, and how do I build it to where I shouldn't be doing everything? Actually, we got compliments on that, the reports that we provide when I stopped doing them. And so, leaning on people that do it better than I do is something I'm starting to become a lot more comfortable with, because it shouldn't depend on me every single day.
You're starting to experience the benefits of systems where you put it into a documented process, like the reports. You start from somewhere, and now someone else can do it. You can improve upon it. You've got a system. Once you've got that system, they can improve the system as well. It's like, hey, maybe they can bring innovation to something. Whereas if there's nothing, it's just pure chaos, and there's nothing that can grow from that chaos. Whereas you put a line in the sand and you start documenting out, these are the things that I need you to do. And wow, you went from A to B to C. You did a good job. Now you're going to get to D, and then you just keep expanding and building on it. That then gives you more mind space and capacity to be able to do things that are valuable to your business. So you can hire better, look for more opportunities, prospect more, build better systems. It's buying back your time such that you can, what are you going to do with that time? You're probably not going for cappuccinos more. You're probably working on better things in your business. But eventually you'll be having lots of cappuccinos and going to the gym and taking care of your body and spending time with your kids. That's the aim, and that's what systems can bring you to.
Yeah, I'll get to be the visionary that kind of sets the course for where we're going, instead of, like in Dave Ramsey terms, the treadmill operator that's just running all day, and there's nothing wrong with creating a really good job, a really high paying, well paying job. But if you're wanting to build a business, then you gotta do something a little bit more. And so that's kind of where we're going.
For sure. And a solopreneur, they can build a really good job, but you know what? Wheels on the treadmill wear out and they break. And if that happens, it's not pretty. Whereas in a job, if you're working at an organization, you need to, there's an infrastructure there that can, you punch in, you punch out. In many cases, it might not feel that way. Like, oh, I'm free from my job every night at 5. Some people have that luxury, but many don't in this world that we live in today. But there's always that's their problem, right? To figure out, the employee's not problem to figure out, oh, what if I can't come to work? What if I'm not well? What if I'm tired or I'm burned out? But if you're a solopreneur, it's on you and it's all there. And that adds to another layer of stress. Not only are you working the treadmill, but you're adding the mental health aspect of, this treadmill cannot stop. We can't have any treadmill breakdowns here. So by adding systems and process and having the ability, that's another pathway to making that job actually work, is that you are making yourself more efficient and reducing the burden that's on you, not having it all up in your head. So people often say, oh, I just, what do I need systems and process for? I've got it all right here. It's like, yeah, that's the problem. Even if you're not writing the systems, eventually those systems documented help you, because you're still the staff in the business. So there's no excuse not to build out systems and process and document what's in your head. So anyways, I digress on that a little bit. This has been a fantastic conversation, Cameron. I have not looked at my questions. Dave went through all this great work to make sure, but I think we hit everything really well, really deeply, and I still have 30 questions I could ask you. You've been a fantastic guest. I know we'll have you back to go deeper in some areas and find out what's changed and new and all those good things. But, if there was any, if people wanted to learn more about you or connect with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I would say email. I'm pretty active on Facebook. Don't have Twitter or Instagram or any of those things. But I'm just, but Cameron at imagodeibookkeeping.com, and it's IMAGODEI bookkeeping.com.
Beautiful. And we'll have the link in the show notes for them to go and get access to that. And really want to just thank you for being on the show and your generosity with all of your answers and being transparent about where you've been and where you're going. It's been a real wonderful conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
That was a terrific finale to our two-part series with Cameron Davis. His journey offers a great example how systems can get the foundation for freedom and scale. Hopefully you enjoyed the chat. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.